hold a spoon and I stroke it very gently and I look at it and I say, bend, melt, bend, melt. And look, the metal is becoming almost like plastic. Plasticine, no heat is produced. I say bend, melt, bend, and look, and then I went like that, and the spoon broke.
Where ancient wisdom and modern research converge, divine science emerges. What if psychic abilities are not rare anomalies, but clues to an untapped power within us all? Could feats like bending a spoon with the mind reveal the true potential of human consciousness?
So when we think about what the best science of the modern world is now telling us about our relationship to the field of energy that underlies all existence, it makes perfect sense that we would have the ability to interact with that field. We always have. We may not have known the science, but we certainly knew the processes that will facilitate these, and we call these psychic abilities.
Psychic abilities are when you can access information that is outside the 5 physical senses.
What I tend to call it is universal Wi-Fi. You know, it's like, just like our cell phones are connected to Wi-Fi or our computers and the internet. It's like we're living in a big internet, if you will, where we can get access to information. It's incredible.
Psychic abilities encompass a wide range of phenomena. Some of the most common are psychokinesis and telekinesis, the abilities to influence or move physical objects with the mind; telepathy, the transfer of thoughts or emotions between individuals; precognition, the perception of future events; presentiment, the sensing of something before it happens; and deep intuition, a profound knowing that guides decisions without conscious reasoning. Together, these abilities reflect our biological connection to an energetic field, with the mind and body acting as antennas to access this universal source of information.
So when we talk about psychic abilities, we are exploring our biological relationship in an energetic field. We are the technology we've been waiting for. We are the transducers. We are the soft technology that is interfacing with information that lives in the field, our divinity. This is where our imagination, our creativity, our innovation, our love, our healing, all originate in that field. And many psychic experiences are actually rooted in what we call deep intuition.
So it's hunches, gut feelings. If I'm standing in front of someone that I don't know they're dangerous, I can't perceive the danger with my 5 senses, but the hair on the back of my neck is standing up, that would be an intuitive hit. Something's not right here.
Intuition is just on a spectrum of various psychic abilities, and it might be the most common. What people might call gut hunches, or I just know it, or I just feel that it's true. It is a type of psychic ability that shows up in a particular way, whether it's through the body, known cognitively, or known through emotions.
Psychic abilities are so prevalent that remote viewing science tells us that only 10% of people don't have them, and those are the people who doubt and deny them. So what they're saying, and what I've seen personally, is that literally everyone has them.
When psychic experiences are far more common than many might assume, it challenges us to rethink what we know about human potential, suggesting these phenomena are deeply woven into the human experience. This universality raises intriguing questions about how these abilities manifest and what they might reveal about our connection to the unseen forces of reality.
I've been studying psychic phenomena in the laboratory for about 40 years. Virtually any kind of psychic effect that is amenable to being studied in the lab, I've done that. Of the different kinds of studies that I've done, the one that I think has produced the strongest effect is something I call presentiment.
Presentiment refers to the phenomenon where the body unconsciously responds to a future event before it occurs, suggesting a form of pre-awareness. It is not a conscious prediction, but a subtle physiological reaction, such as changes in heart rate, skin conductance, or brain activity.
And it works like this. If you connect a measurement device on somebody's finger, you can measure the conductivity of their skin. And what happens is when somebody is startled, shocked, or scared in some way, they will tense up and their sweat glands will start to produce more sweat, and the conductivity of their skin increases. And this all happens in under 1 second. So what they'll do is they'll have the human subject sit in front of the computer. The computer will be flashing images at random, totally unpredictable which images show up. What happens is a few seconds before being shown something scary, the skin conductivity will increase. What you find is there's actually a very significant subconscious, involuntary reaction just prior to being shown the scary image. This seems to be a genuine psi precognitive effect.
The conclusion from the presentiment experiments is a confirmation of what we see in virtually any kind of psychic experience. Part of our unconscious mind is scanning our past, present, and future all the time. It's always there. It's always operating. The presentiment experiment says in particular that if we can train ourselves to have better interoception, that's the technical term for paying attention to your gut and your heart and your skin and so on. Some people will feel this as getting a chill. They get goosebumps. Other people will feel it in many different ways. So if you're driving along somewhere and you get this bad feeling, if you're really good at interoception, you will feel it. You'll feel something in your gut, you'll feel something in your heart. Your body is trying to tell you that in 5 seconds from now, there's going to be an uh-oh. That's the message that we get from this and many other experiments. That level of awareness is always there.
It turns out that it's not just humans either. There was a study by Alvarez who showed that finches, when being shown images at random, would start to become agitated prior to being shown an image of a snake, which is their natural predator. So this ability seems to be generalized across not just humans, but animals and insects, perhaps even life itself.
The ability to sense events beyond immediate perception challenges our understanding of time and causality. Could the key to these extraordinary connections lie within our very biology?
In the late 2000s, scientists made a series of discoveries that give deep insight into why psychic abilities, number one, why they're possible, number two, why they happen, number three, how we can maybe develop them to even deeper levels. One of those discoveries was that DNA literally function as antenna, not just any kind of antenna, but what are called fractal antenna. And what that means is that they're receiving multiple bandwidths of information across a broad spectrum all at the same time, simultaneously. DNA, from an engineering perspective, is a fractal antenna. Now here's where this comes into the psychic abilities. Another series of studies in the biological world showed that when a woman conceives a life in her womb, the DNA of the baby circulates in the mother's blood and lodges in organs in her body, and her DNA is circulating in her baby's blood and lodges in specific organs in her baby's body. There's resonant information being transmitted between the living offspring and their mother. So it's no surprise that when the offspring is in trouble, whether it's a 5-year-old baby falling off of a slide or a swing in the backyard, or a 23-year-old son hit by an IED in Afghanistan, that the mother is going to know, to sense that something is wrong. And this helps us understand what psychic abilities are all about. Information is being transferred between two living beings. It has to have a medium to flow through. It's flowing through the field We all have this all the time. The question is, do we trust ourselves enough to accept the information that we're receiving, or do we discount that information?
There's a fascinating phenomenon called telesomatic phenomenon, where pairs of people actually feel the physical sensations of the other pair. Take twins, for example. There have been numerous anecdotes where one twin has been injured in some way or in a car accident, and the other twin knows it immediately, exactly when it happens. There have been anecdotes of one twin or one bonded pair going into labor and the other person being like, okay, they're in labor because I'm feeling labor pains. There are numerous anecdotes, and we're collecting all of these so that we can be able to do formal analysis of them and see what their commonalities are.
In 2017, Dr. Dean Radin conducted a groundbreaking study exploring the influence of focused mental intention on quantum systems. Among the participants was Brandy Gilmore, whose experience in this experiment revealed fascinating insights into the potential interplay between consciousness and the physical world.
Like, I was locked in like this room, and in another room there was a photon beam with photon splitters and then a photon counter at the end. And basically what happened is, in this vault closet, if you will, this little voice would come on and say, go. And basically what you do is want to use your mind to then influence the photons in the photon beam. And so then it would stop, and then it would go, and then it would stop. And basically you could tell when you're using your mind, and when you're not using your mind, you can see the fluctuations in the photon beam and photon counter and all of that.
Things are correlated, but we don't know exactly why. And that is the case in entanglement. Things are connected through space and time. Well, how does that work? Well, we don't exactly know. We have equations that will describe how it works, but at a real fundamental level, we don't know how that's possible.
Emerging research into psi and genetics suggests a fascinating link, pointing to a specific region of the genome that may hold clues to the innate psychic potential present in all of us.
We completed a study looking at the genetics of psychic ability and actually looked at high-functioning psychics compared to age, gender, and race-matched controls. And we found a fascinating preliminary finding on chromosome 7 on a non-coding region that's called TNRC7. And what was fascinating about this part of the genome was that the psychics had the original or wild type form, and the controls had a mutation, meaning that it mutated towards not expressing the psychic ability. This was so intriguing to us. We went and looked at genomic databases that had thousands and thousands of people and found that this wild type original version was present in over 90% of the people in that data set, which really supports this idea that we all have this innate ability to be psychic.
This discovery raises an intriguing question. What could have led to a mutation away from psychic ability?
So we did an analysis comparing the genomes in more technologically advanced countries versus less advanced, and we found increased mutations in the technologically advanced countries. That was significant, which supported our hypothesis.
This finding raises compelling questions about how environmental and technological factors might influence the expression of psychic abilities. Interestingly, when individuals experience a psychic insight, measurable changes occur in the brain, offering a glimpse into the interplay between mind, biology, and intuition.
The most interesting and wonderful thing about a psychic insight is that it powers up the brain. You will see an increase in the amplitude of the brainwave categories. Sometimes you can see somebody's gamma, and then the gamma goes up like this, and it can double, triple, quadruple in amplitude as the brain lights up and becomes more lucid, awake, and aware, which creates a coherence. That moment of insight is just an absolute joy to watch, and it's definitely quantifiable. You can look at the data and see a huge change in the brainwave pattern.
One technology designed to explore and optimize brainwave activity is the mind mirror, a sophisticated neurofeedback device. It monitors brainwave frequencies, including delta waves, 0.5 to 4 Hz, dominant during deep restorative sleep, theta waves, 4 to 8 Hz, linked to creativity, intuition, and deep relaxation, alpha waves, 8 to 14 Hz, associated with calm focus and meditative states, beta waves, 14 to 30 Hz, connected to alertness, concentration, and problem solving, and gamma waves, 30 to 100 Hz, which are linked to peak cognitive performance and heightened perception. The mind mirror provides valuable insights into the relationship between consciousness and brain activity.
On the mind mirror, we are looking at 2 different measurements. So the frequency is the speed of the thought, and the amplitude is the power of the thought. So by looking at the 2 together, the speed of the electrical signal, the power of the electrical signal, what we're actually looking at is the activities of consciousness. If someone, for example, gets really busy with their beta and it splays outward into high-frequency stress, anxiety, and panic, then we see the alpha bridge collapse. Or you can have a huge amplitude decrease in healers, like psychics and healers. They'll have a massive, massive delta down at the bottom. So it's really less about what amplitude they start with as it is the changes that occur during the session as they access energy and information.
Research further suggests that focused mental intention can create measurable changes in a recipient's body, influencing brain waves, heart activity, and other physiological markers. These experiments aim to uncover whether a connection exists that transcends physical space.
I think some of the most compelling physiological evidence around psychic abilities is with the distant mental intention of living systems protocol, which essentially took pairs of people and separated them into completely different parts of the building, and then hooked both of them up to physiological recording devices, whether it was EEG, looking at brain waves, or EKG, heart waves, what was happening on the skin or other parts of the body. And then they would have one person direct their intention towards the other. And during those periods of directed intention, the receiver's physiology would change compared to times when the other person wasn't directing their intention. So these people are separated completely, and yet the receiver's body is changing when someone else is directing intention to it. That's incredible.
The measurable physiological changes seen in studies of distant intention point to an intriguing question. How are such connections possible across physical space? Some researchers suggest that the answer lies in quantum principles, where the concept of non-locality challenges our traditional understanding of time and space.
Let me share a little bit about what entanglement means. There was an experiment that was done back in the 1990s called the twin photon experiment, where Swiss engineers, they took one photon, a particle of light, and they broke it in half. So they were 2 identical photons, came from the same original. And they put them into a special device with fiber optic cables. And one device shot one photon 7 miles in one direction and the other one 7 miles in the other direction. Now they're 14 miles apart, and the experiment begins. Everything they did to one of these photons, the other one acted like it had the same experience. And the question was, How did that happen? How did this photon tell this photon that it had just been forced to spin in a certain direction or have a certain polarity? The answer is it didn't have to tell. Because even though they were physically separated, energetically, they were still connected because they had been part of the same photon. This goes back to the very beginning of what physicists call the Big Bang. Fractions of a second, all of the matter in the universe was collapsed into a space about the size of a green pea. Everything was connected. As the expansion continued and the physical matter separated energetically, it remained connected. We are products of that physical matter. We are atoms that were formed in that original primal release of energy. This is why we are connected with one another. This is why ESP works, because energetically, we are still part of that field.
In the physicalist paradigm, our consciousness is anchored in our physical brain. In fact, our neurons create our consciousness. In a non-physicalist paradigm, our consciousness is not an artifact of the brain and goes beyond our physical brain, is in fact non-local, that expands beyond our conventional notions of time and space. It transcends them.
The idea that consciousness transcends the physical brain challenges our understanding of reality. Could the bending of a spoon, known as telekinesis, reveal an extraordinary connection between mind and matter? Some believe quantum principles like non-locality and the observer effect may hold the key to unlocking this mystery.
So when I manipulate a spoon, when I stroke it gently, when I command it to bend or break or melt or grow or move, I produce an energy wave. I don't believe it comes out from my finger. I believe it comes out from my mind. And it penetrates the molecular structure of the metal. Maybe I'm deriving or I'm extracting some kind of a power, some kind of a universal energy from outside me. Maybe it has nothing to do with my mind. Maybe there is some kind of an intelligence above me, a super force, a thinking entity that does this thing through me.
Uri Geller or anyone else who's good at bending spoons, what they're having to do is dissolve their awareness of themselves as a separate entity having a specific action on a separate object. They are saying, this is all one field, we are nothing but energy, I'm going to vibrate at the energy of the spoon, or the spoon's going to vibrate at my energetic frequency, but there's a union. There has to be a union between the person and the field and the spoon to know that it's only one field, only one energy.
So in the movie The Matrix, they would probably say you have to realize that there is no spoon, and there is some reality to that, because ultimately the world that we perceive, again, through the limitations of the body, makes us believe that there is a solid form. So what a psychic would have to do is actually overcome this limitation and realize that there is a living nature inside of the spoon that determines its appearance and its actually setup of its particles.
When I do spoon bending, I like to describe the science behind it. So what I like to say is you heat it up. You could sense the particles inside of it. And heating up particles, heating up electrons and stuff, so it'll get everything activated, right? But then there's the spiritual side of it. You're able to connect to that. You're able to, feel when this material was still liquid. when it was molten and when it was being poured into what it is now, you could still go back in time and talk to that material. You could go back in time to ask how you want to be bent.
So in the brainwave pattern of a spoon bender, you will initially see an advanced brainwave pattern. And then when they start to bend the spoon, it seems to me so far that one of two things happens. Either they extend their delta way, way out into hyper microvoltages because their unconscious mind is moving out into the field to connect with the quantum field. And they're getting the spoon bending power from making that connection. Or conversely, at the other end of the spectrum, they are increasing the power of their gamma, powering up the brain. The brain's running faster, much faster, at the moment they bend the spoon.
So you have an enormous amount of infinite energy, and now you have a non-localized consciousness that is interplaying with each other. That means consciousness is determining every type of form, every type of functionality, and accessing that and training how to access that gives you a limitless amount of colors for your own reality to create with.
The psychokinesis is evidence in my mind that consciousness is all there is, and that matter is actually consciousness.
If consciousness is the essence of all reality, psychic abilities may be universal, woven into the fabric of human existence. Yet some people appear more naturally gifted, raising questions about what shapes such abilities.
Are people born more gifted psychically than others? Yes. And I think about it like someone who plays the piano. We can all play the piano. Every one of us can develop psychic abilities, but some of us are going to do it at a different level than others. Some are going to be on a concert stage, some are going to be playing chopsticks, and that'll be the height of their ability.
So one of the reasons why we don't experience these things more often is because of a societal stigma or a taboo that prevents people from openly talking about their experiences. That's a pity, because it also restricts what we can learn about them. So science has been studying these kinds of effects for about 140 years in laboratory studies. We know now with very high confidence that some of what I would say elementary experiences that people have are real. It's like shockingly clear that the moment you step outside of a limited set of assumptions, all those things that you used to call crazy or delusional or whatever, they're fraudulent. No, they actually not only can be real, they must be real at these larger ways of thinking about reality.
There's a spiritual, divine quality to human life, to all life. And I think you can see that in the realms of psychic research, and that it really represents a way forward for us because it represents our own expansion. It represents us getting bigger, getting deeper, life becoming more meaningful.
We have to learn to think from the innermost level, which is the source of all that there is on the surface. We use the ocean analogy. We have to go to the bottom of the ocean, or we use in physics the unified field analogy. So we have to go to the unified field, which is the source of all that is manifest in the universe, and from there we can achieve anything.
No doubt consciousness, super consciousness exists. And to our viewers right now, everything is possible in life. Remember that there is nothing that you cannot be, do, or have, because your mind power can materialize things for you. Your mind ability, your super consciousness can do things for you. If you think positive, you're sending that message out to that universe, and it brings it back to you.
Psychic abilities may not be extraordinary exceptions, but an intrinsic part of the human experience? Could they represent a fundamental aspect of who we are, waiting for us to unlock their full potential? Where ancient wisdom and modern research converge, divine science emerges.